Hello Final Fantasy fans, and welcome back to another Sage Suggestion video. Today we're going to be talking about Steiner and ultimately the Wind/Water list that I've teased kind of early on in the week, and it's always been a favorite of mine, and I love Final Fantasy IX, so Steiner does deserve his day as a spotlight card. Now, if you've played Wind/Water, or maybe you've noticed just water decks in general, their power to cost ratio is usually going to be a little bit under because they get more value out of what they do. So in this case, we have Steiner. If you have 3 or more points of damage, he's going to draw you a card, and then he has the other effect, which we'll talk about more throughout length in this video, but I really want to focus on that first part. The fact that this is a 9k powered forward in either water or Wind/Water is a huge factor for this deck. This is going to be one of your more aggressive cards that, with, again, the second effect being that as it is, you're always going to be able to push through for those points of damage. Now his second effect, dull when active water forwarder other than Steiner, and gains plus 1000 power. So as you might imagine, we're going to be wanting to play these cards, either have Brave or we have some way to activate them again with either Astrologian as a possible choice, and there's going to be a few other cards that are going to be on our field that we want to keep dulled anyways that combo very well with Steiner. So overall, if you're playing water or Wind/Water, you should absolutely be playing this card because it checks all the boxes that we want it to. So some of these cards are going to be just kind of a what in the world are you doing versus okay, this is actually a good idea. But at least with Gogo, I thought it was worth mentioning because he does have the option to give himself Brave. So as I had mentioned, that's kind of one of the things that you want to be doing anyways. This is potentially a 3-drop 8k Brave forward if you have something in the break zone that's going to give it Brave. So maybe you do Water Earth, you know, maybe you just rely on the Wakka backup for the extra power, what have you. But what this allows you to do is be able to attack with a 8k costed forward and then attack with Steiner to follow up, which is still going to be, you know, that 8 or 9k power. And then if you really need to, if they have a combat trick or something, you can just dull Gogo after the fact and give them that extra 1000 power that you need. So on the list of will this see play versus this is going to go in every deck, this is definitely at the low end of that curve because it's going to take considerably more work and there's probably just better options, but I felt it was at least worth mentioning. Getting a bigger role in this and being just a lot easier to pull off is Theodore. Now this is a card that I was quite surprised we didn't see with all the water monster decks floating around because it is a water character, so those monster cards are going to count as well. And really this falls in the same category as Gogo did when it has Brave. You get to play something. If you're playing your green dragons or your Tonberries, you give something Brave, you attack. In this case, let's just say you attack with your 9k Theodore because you have your plus 1000 power backup. You attack with him, then attack with your Steiner, or it allows you to play defensively as well, which is absolutely worth mentioning. So Theodore, another card that, yes, this one's going to be much more focused on mono water, which I think is a fabulous place for Steiner to be, but another card that's worth looking into, and we're starting to move our way more towards the, we're going to include this in the deck anyway, so it has the obvious synergy with Steiner. The card that probably just screams play if we're already invested in Steiner, of course, is Beatrix, and when you put them together, it makes a really cute artwork, which is absolutely a reason to run it. I love it when trading card games do that. So, you know, Square Enix, if you have more cutscene arts like that we can use, please, please, please include them. So, if you have Steiner, she gets plus 1000 power and does not receive any damage from abilities, which is great for how many things that we've seen, like ping effects or different things of that nature. But a 3-drop 8k, potentially 3-drop 9k, huge, huge aggressive card for water that we don't often get to see. But not only that, you get to live the dream of the second effect that when she attacks, you get to shrink all of your opponent's forwards by 1000 power. And again, you've kind of, if you played Wind/Water, if you played any of the water decks, typically that 1000 power difference makes absolutely a huge deal that your opponent has to consider and can put your opponent off in a lot of situations, especially if they're, you know, Fire Ice has been kind of all the love and all the rage lately, that they have this really sweet spot around 7 and 8k, and unless they have Belias, they really can't do much about it. So if you have a 1k power backup and minus 1000 of their board, that combat is always going to go favorably for you, unless they overextend on their resources and they have something like a big Bahamut to get out of it. So Beatrix, I think if you can find room in your list, which I will say, spoiler, this was in, I think, like version 3 of my list originally. Now it's on version, you know, 4 or 5. I cut this card, but I think if you're playing mono water, absolutely give it a run. Now, the card that I think everyone's kind of realized by now, or if you haven't, this is why I want to do this video, is Cecil. You can live the dream by getting out your Cecil, keeping him on the field, and he has this huge drawback that says he must block. Well, if you have Steiner on the board, you can simply dull it for the effect, and Cecil is going to go virtually nowhere. It's very difficult to remove him once you have Steiner on the board to protect him, speaking loosely there, for the remainder of the game. Now, outside of something like a Shantoto, again, they're going to have to do a lot of work to try to make that happen. They're going to have to answer your Steiner, which chances are you can still protect through other methods as well. Or if they have something to get rid of Steiner, you can just always dull Cecil in response, let them get their attack through, or whatever they're going to be doing, and then you still have another turn to either respond. Maybe you draw the Leviathan. There's a lot you can do in your typical water or wind water list to protect him. And again, plus 1,000 power, so just having this on the board, you're giving plus 2k to Steiner. You can imagine very quickly when you have a Minwu on board as well, how that can be absolute hell for your opponent, and this is kind of my... I guess it's ultimately a 4-card lock, if you will, but I think each of those cards individually are fine by themselves, and they all build into this just impossible board state that your opponent can't answer. And then the last card I think that I really want to mention because it hasn't been seeing a lot of play lately, and I think it's just insane right now. Not that it was ever bad, but Tidus. So you get Blitz Ace, you obviously get to live the dream of having Brave with that attack. So you get to have this big forward that's going to hit for a lot of damage. You have Steiner to be able to dull it after the fact if you just need that 1k extra boost. But again, it's another one of those cards that creates this huge wall in these water and wind water decks I think is absolutely worth looking into. And I would not be surprised if Tita starts to see more play in some of the decks. I don't think it's made any top 8 list. I'd have to double check that, maybe some smaller events, but I think it's definitely time to bring this card back and think about your deck list and if you have room for it. So this is the list that we've played in the video. As you can see, it's kind of your stock wind water type of deck, but I really want to at least point out that the Aerith Maria combo of just telling your opponent no has been so strong for me in the different ways on how those matchups can happen, because they can't red mage your forward, they can't, make it so they can't block anymore. You have Steiner or Tidus, which is just going to make this massive wall that your opponent can't touch. And it is really a frustrating deck to play against depending on the matchup, as you kind of saw in our duel series this week. So I might be a little bit biased because it'll always be my favorite combination, but I love this wind water deck as it's been doing very well for me. So I do hope you guys will give it a try. If you do, of course, let me know what other cards that you would consider in this list. Maybe there's some, maybe you're not a fan of Moogle, for example, which can be an 8k in this deck, which has been absolutely insane for me. But, what other cards would you consider in those lists? Do you cut Tidus in favor of just more individually powerful cards, not realizing that you might not always hit Blitz Ace? Let us know in the comments. And of course, if you have a card that you want us to feature for one of these videos, drop it down, give us a deck list, or just give us a card and we'll start brewing with it. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below. That helps us out greatly. Leave a comment again what kind of decks you want to see next, and of course subscribe for future Final Fantasy Trading Card game content. So on behalf of myself and the rest of the Six Sages gaming crew, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video. Have a good one. This video made possible thanks to our Patreon supporters. Thank you to our honorary sages.